welcome. Today we are dancing with Frank Bock. We met, well actually I met your work many years ago. And I was very inspired and influenced by everything I heard and saw through the Cholmondeleys and The Featherstonehaughs, through Simon Vincenzi. And then we've managed to meet here in Stockholm maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's been a really inspiring relationship. So I'm so happy that you said yes to coming and spending some time in the studio. And if people don't know who you are, or how would you say hello?
Yeah.
Or
How would I say hello? I would say hello. This is an introduction of who I am.
Yeah, exactly.
So in this context, I work as a lecturer in choreography here in the university, and I think that's where we also met. So I come from dance. I think I would still identify as a dancer. I certainly work with choreography, and that's also my role in teaching here. But I'm interested in the body and how we articulate from the body. So I've, over these years, been particularly interested in body and language and how those two things operate together. And so I work in different contexts. I've worked in the context as an artist curator and facilitator, as well as a maker for many years, but less so recently. I also work in somatic kind of therapy contexts, and I've been teaching in that domain as well.
I mean, it's rich and it's still like if we keep picking, we'll find it. But people
can find me. I don't know how they find me. I mean, I was thinking on the way here that difference between having an identity and fulfilling roles, and I can name different kind of contexts and roles, and my identity kind of moves through those different contexts. And I was struck by how hard it is to say, this is who I am and this is what I do. But I kind of quite enjoy that problem in some way.
I can imagine. But maybe a good way of at least situating where you are now is what we're going to do today.
Yeah, exactly. We're in the studio.
Yeah.
And studios are amazing places, and it's this incredible apparatus to be sort of taken out into a framed space where things can happen, or nothing can happen, but we can dwell and explore relations and emergent processes. So I love studios. I love sitting down in the studio as we're sitting right now, because it immediately has invitation and just constantly proposes questions.
Yeah. And if you could maybe describe a little bit like what the task for us is going to be, or like how we're going to work. Is that possible?
Yeah. Well, I've got some materials here, but we're going to work with the materials we find in the space. I frequently work with some very simple elasticated twine and paper, and just to sort of create constructs in the studio, or to be able to engage in some kind of making process, building process. But this studio that we're already in is full of materials. There's objects that are lying around, which is actually quite unusual for a dance studio. Normally it's just the bars or a piece of clothing that's been left or piano. But here today we've got crash mats and there's all kinds of other things. But we're going to inhabit this space for a set period of time and build something and then have a conversation and an exploration from what we have created. Kind of particularly interested in the kind of tensions around how we occupy ourselves, how we find ourselves in relation to things in the moment of articulation, and needing the whole body to somehow do that and participate in that. Sensory practices, we're going to explore maybe some kind of where does our thinking and understanding go when we're with something? Like how does this moment suggest other things? And how can we dwell and stand there and work from there? So that's something that we're going to explore. And I like the idea of the studio as a kind of frame. We frame it in time, we frame it, it's a spatial frame, it's a temporal frame. Studios in dance are always booked by the hour.
Yeah.
So there's something about that.
Yeah. And so in a way we're going to see what can manifest, and we're using twine and paper and string. If people don't know what twine is, it's quite a but to sort of manifest our presence maybe in the space, and then use that as a way to articulate like verbally what that does for us in relationship to the room. And
we would set a question.
Okay. Yeah.
That we could start with, and then in building and pondering, that question then gets a chance to be kind of springboard, a kind of portal into the concerns that fall out of that for you and for me. So we're going to do this together.
Nice.
So we're going to alternate between each other.
And is there a time frame that you would like to use? In speaking of different frames that the studio provides.
Yeah. Yes. I propose we do 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we have a discussion for 20 minutes or so.
Great.
Let's say 20 minutes, because I know that we're also part of this format. You also have a 20 minute.
Yeah.
So I think we'll stick with that. We'll do 3 rounds. We'll do a making round. We'll do making and pondering and considering, and then a kind of explicating, direct, allowing that to go in whatever direction it does through dialogue and through positioning and through hanging out with where we are now, with where we've been. And then I think you have a further step of having done that,
to reflect on
reflect on that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so then I feel like that's very clear, and more will become clear, of course, afterwards. Maybe to ask, should we set the question now, or is it more a private thing that we should set?
Good point. I think if we, I'll set the question once we start in the space.
Great.
And then we can say what the question is and how we springboarded from that.
Yeah, I mean, and if people want to try at home, they would be able to set their own question and not be influenced too much by ours. So
Sure,
that's good.
exactly.
Great. See you in a minute. So we're back. Thank you so much, Frank. That was, as always, extremely rewarding and intense. And I was really, I felt really privileged as well that you participated as well, because I think when we've done this before, it has been something we've done separately.
Yeah.
Or, I've never seen you do it actually. I've only ever done it myself.
Yeah.
But how was it for you today? Is it different? You've done it like this before, I suppose?
Yeah, I think there's something about working in the studio together, working in the same space, thinking about how does my working on a question also share a space with someone else.
Yeah.
And kind of enjoying the way we interaffect each other, the way we possess or don't possess space, give up territory, share territory, just the kind of the relational conversations that go on. I kind of enjoy that in what we just did just now.
Yeah. Because I mean, maybe we can share the question outright, but the question was very much about our own practices and in relationship to now and how we are. And something that occurs to me is that by just maintaining the question, I mean, firstly, that I feel is the biggest operation happening in the practice, is that I'm holding that question, regardless. Not completely regardless, but there's a sense of like I don't really know why I'm putting a piece of string here or why I'm choosing that piece of paper, and it sort of, but because I'm with the question, it sort of starts to that's part of this, or I'm trying to figure this out, and the being together, I find like it feels very apt, because never in our practices or in our lives, I guess, are we in a fully empty room, so to speak. We're always negotiating invisible territories and other persons' spaces and being in relationship to the contributions others are making. There's something very beautiful about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think the question we posed just now was, what do you want from yourself in relation to your practice? And there's something about that, keeping something present, keeping a demand upon self, keeping something active that I know I want developing or want to keep present to myself. And how quickly that may slip away, but just I think what I just enjoyed in just doing that round then with you was something about the way intention and articulation also, for me, wants to exist in relation to granularizing that, breaking that down. We talked a bit about edifices, like when we make a proposition or put something out there, it takes form, and how easy it is to get drawn into those representations or those forms, and also wanting to keep undermining that as a practice,
yeah.
and enjoying that undermining, and it was very pleasurable just to create movement in the space.
Yes.
And have things moving around, and find movement that could happen with materials and furniture and so on.
Yours was very movement based. I was it was really wonderful to witness, because the instruction it doesn't necessitate dancing, for instance, right? Or moving in a sort of like with that as the only focus, but the mobility of the furniture, the movement of the string and its attachment to this strange object we found hanging on the wall, like they were really important, and it was very nice to see also that these edifices, I can't say the word.
Edifices,
they're also mobile, or like as we reckon with them, like what are we proposing and what are we putting into the world, like that they aren't fully fixed, or they never will be, perhaps, as well.
Yeah, or what is it to give that up to some extent? That idea of fixity, and I think movement is it's a great place to think from. It's a great place to find thought and to think from, and it's a place that I really like to spend time in. As a thinking process.
Which is interesting, since the question was about like what do you want from practice today, and this in a way is your practice today, and it does that in a way. It provides this space which is very contemplative and allows one to think, to take time, to navigate, reassess, to be consequent maybe with what one's doing.
I mean, I think dance has this great ability to possess multiplicity of meaning at the same time while being specific. And that's the draw for me, is to sense that, to feel that, and to sort of work from that. And then it's an evocative, thick space.
Yeah, because I mean, if we do a sort of like comparative thing, maybe if you were to sit on a chair and to write, like my practice today is, and it would be useful, but there's something more, at least I feel it as more tangible, that it is sort of full of complexity, full of multiplicity, and sort of ambiguous, actually, and it's sort of like, is situatedness, and yet at the same time very real, very understandable, very relatable. It really grasps the complexity of it. You brought up age, if I can bring it up. Because that was like quite an edifice in the room, and I think it's interesting how you spoke of a worry that age becomes this stasis, or this becoming a fixity, maybe. And yet, in the practice, in your approach and the modalities of your dancing, you provide a complete contra understanding of what it must be to be at the age you are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 60, so declare that now. But I think there's something about what has been is more probably than what is ahead. What does that produce? What does that do to a process? Like how to keep an ongoing process, also in relation to accumulation, in relation to a past, not wanting to be an active accumulation, an ongoing accumulation in relation to that, rather than we talked a lot about fixity and
death. That came up as well.
Yeah. What do I want to do that makes a difference? Or something important. That was also something that came up for you around.
Sorry, yeah.
But I really enjoy the way our concerns weave with each other in the process.
You spoke about, do we do something to be remembered as like this was Peter's, or do we do something that, and now I forget the quality of what you articulated, but that sort of resonates, and it came from a specific philosopher, maybe.
Yeah, I was talking about a book called The Denial of Death by Ernst Becker, where he talks about that time running out can produce a kind of desire to create, or a kind of pressure to leave marks, or redistribute self in the world, or find your marks, or and so how we do that, I guess, is interesting. I think you had some kind of tension between wanting to support change, but at the same time not wanting to claim a space in a certain kind of way.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't want to. I was worried about that ambition quality.
It was
maybe.
Ambition. Yeah.
I actually recently was working, and I'd love to talk about this as well, how your work, I've read that your work relates to philosophy, but maybe it's more thinking in general. But I was working in the summer, and I'd been really struggling with this sense that one doesn't leave a mark, like one can't affect, especially in relationship to climate change and sort of the political strife that seems to be ever present with sort of overarching historical hierarchies of repression, like patriarchy, sexism, racism, and how does one affect them? They feel like stone. They feel so permanent and so unchanging, and that in my lifetime I will never leave any sort of dent into that sort of space. And I was working with the ground. I was outside in an old smithery in Uppsala sort of county, and I'm working on the ground, and I wanted to sort of get close to the ground, and I'm moving with the ground, and I'm trying to feel my weight against the ground and feel the ground. And as I was working with it, and I was working with the ground for sort of like 5 hours long performances, just pushing my body into the dirt and into the gravel and the soil. And I really started to sense that even these things which feel permanent, like the walls of the buildings, the rocks, the stones, they do shift, and they do. I do dent them and mark them just as much as they mark my body. I mean, and there was something very. It was such a relief to have done that practice, and it felt like I was really fixated on my incapacity to be politically relevant in the world, And by doing this dancing, it really allowed me to think through those things.
Yeah, amazing.
And it seems like that with your practices, or at least the ones I've met, like there is a role of thinking that is so important. Can you maybe say to like how it's changed, or like, and do you sometimes relate it to philosophy, or is it something else?
I mean, I think dance is a beautiful art form to think through. When I hear you talk about leaving a mark, maybe the mark we leave is about not leaving a trace, you know, or leaving a resonance, which seems a better idea to do less than to take more from more stress on the world. So, yeah, what's my relation to philosophy? Well, I think there's something about conversation and questionings and how do we live and what are we trying to do. They're kind of really important to my practice. What is the sense making each one of us brings to that? What is it to have a body? Is always a great question. It's always a great starting point. Or, you know, how is the mystery of embodiment also played out and enjoyed? I'm really interested in that. So those questions are usually very active in what I do. I've been doing these studio conversations here with Chrysa Parkinson for quite a few years, and we've kind of sort of deployed this methodology together. The service of kind of unearthing evocative conversations from the body, from the dancing, from the studio, from the histories of the people that we invite in, and it's been a really, really rich process.
It's there's really a sense of like how do you these like you say, studio conversations. I think when I first encountered it, I was thinking how it's an analysis maybe of what dance is, what a studio is, like how can we articulate better what it is we do. But I think also there's something, at least in doing it more, and now for me today maybe, about how do we live? Like exactly as you say, like what does it mean to have a body? It is a sort of central question of what it means to be creative inside of dance, wherever that sort of resides. And I think it's also very beautiful that this practice is very, you could say, expanded, since it uses materials, right, as a conduit of composition, movement, being together, community, and yet the dealing with existence or presence and sort of is really central. And yet back to that, when we say studio conversations, it can be very like practical, but in fact I think there's something very existential maybe in that encounter of recognizing the reason we come to the studio is to be together, to be in our body. I actually had if I may, had a realization not long ago where I have been for a while thinking of dance as very broad and too narrowly defined as for the stage, you know, and that I wanted to sort of amplify how dance has these other qualities, and I was almost getting irritated with the sense that dance has to be performed. And I think there's still something there, but I was working with Anna Pehrsson, who actually did a podcast with me, and it was in that she says, she asks us to be ghosts and allow the wind to pass through us and for us to not exist. And I noticed, but ghosts like to exist. They make a noise, they knock things over, they make you feel cold. And then I had to ask, does the dance not want to exist? And I think for me, there is something about the dance desiring existence, desiring presence, and perhaps performing itself, even if not for an audience, but for oneself. There's a sense of concentration or recognition for those qualities that the body and you or experience entwined with it appears before you, and you get to recognize. And it's even more, or it can be more, or it's a big part of it is when it's in dialogue with others and other people. I read this morning, in fact, I think I was reading Catherine Malabou, and she quoted Foucault, I think, and he was saying that the body has a different time. It's out of time. It's at a distinct time from ourselves, and that it seems to make sense a little bit as well.
Yeah, beautiful idea. I think the way our body reaches beyond ourselves is fascinating, and materials are kind of prostheses that allow that, sort of transcendent, or going beyond the edge of the body into space. There's something about movement is a sort of body within space, going beyond body.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really, really fascinating territory to be in. And it's a great pleasure to hang out in these kind of situations.
And it almost extends to the question that you posed. To consider the body as a conduit of many different prostheses, and that it's in movement, that it is escaping itself continuously, and that this larger meta question of like practice and self, and what would you wish that you do for yourself inside that practice. It attends to another scale maybe of this relationship to this body being in the world.
And we get to experiment with, or remember, or re-remember these other ways of having ourselves that isn't just an individualistic sense of self. We get to really sense how dispersal, sharing happens, which kind of is a very liberating experience. Can be, at least.
I have a lot of other questions. I would love to talk about maybe architecture and how production of spaces, and maybe even the production of dance studios, so the construction of places for the body to exist, which is sort of tangibly tethered to the practice of creating delineations in space through materials and building things as well. And even, there's a temporality, or not temporality, a temporariness to the materials that we work with, but I think in a bigger way it speaks to architecture, or like how do we support our living in a way, something that
I'm really excited in these situations by scale, by horizon, by this speaking to this kind of something down here speaking to something up here, where how I mediate that relation between creating points of tension between things. I think get to do that in a studio and reflect on that. Those sort of highways between one thing and another thing that normally may not speak to it. So I think architecture is a really great word, because architecture is also, what it is. I have a sense of what underpins me and what supports me, and how balance and tension and rebalancing and catching are constant processes, and to me that feels very there's a lot of aliveness in that process, and to me that's it's nice when you say architecture, because I think it is about architecture, dynamic architecture.
And also maybe housing, to be really simplistic with the term of architecture. The dance studio is but a house for dance, It's, and the premise of building structures was often always just to house things, to house our bodies, to house our families, to house our community, to house something. I'm going to start to finish here, but I wanted to maybe, so if people want to meet your work, they can attend the things that you do at SKH, Stockholm University of the Arts here in Stockholm, but also the new MA program at...
I've been teaching a bit in London in the expanded dance program. I don't know how people find me.
I mean, and the expanded dance program, just to say, is part of the London Contemporary Dance School.
That's right.
Which is, or the Place, as it's also known. But you're around and you're very approachable, and your work is beautiful. You're very easy to find online. You have a website for your other work, your more somatic work. So I hope people, if they enjoy, that they find a way. And also, I hope that in some way we will continue our conversation. I'm sure we will.
Thank you, Peter.
And also that the dancing, or this practice, we will be able to continue. I know I will continue, because it's already been a part of my world. So I know it will continue to be a part. So.
Well, it's been a real pleasure to hang out with you.
Thank you so much.
To do this. Thanks, Peter.